Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. You know, one question I ask every guest on Everyday Martial Artist is about their favorite martial arts book. And there's never been one quite like Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, described as the art of war for the martial arts. Martial Theory helps any martial artist or instructor take their understanding and teaching to the next level. And at martialtheoryU.com, you'll find a global community with instructor groups, Q&A with Steve, live events, and demonstrations to help you apply martial theory directly to your training. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Find Martial Theory on Amazon, and when you join martialtheoryU.com, use discount code EverydayMA for 20% off. That's under $20 a month for life. That's martialtheoryU.com, code EverydayMA. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the martial arts and other stuff they're involved in. My guest today is a lifelong martial artist, active MMA fighter, and recovery and performance coach. He's the founder of the Fight Science Collective and the creator of the Fight Science Operating System, a data-driven performance and recovery system that helps combat athletes and martial artists train harder, recover faster, and stay on the mat for life. He lives with his partner, Alexandra, and their 3 cats. He's an avid Star Wars fan, me too, EDM lover, and caffeine addict. I used to be. Other than that, we're going to learn more and more about him. So please welcome to the show my guest, Adam Snyder. How you doing today, Adam?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. And like I said, I love it. I was a caffeine addict for so long, and literally like 26 years ago, I gave it up cold turkey. I used to work for Pepsi, and there was a point where I was drinking about 40 bottles of Mountain Dew a week because I got it for cost. That was costing me like $4. And one day I'm just like, God, this is not healthy. And I just stopped. I had a migraine for 5 days and I've never looked back. So
good for you, brother. But more powerful than me. That's my lifeblood. Not Mountain Dew, but caffeine.
It wasn't. I mean, when I worked in radio back in high school, I used to drink, probably before your time, but I used to drink something called Jolt Cola.
Oh, I've never heard of that. No.
You should look it up sometime. Their actual logo on the can was all the sugar and twice the caffeine. it tastes like crap, but man, it gave you the kick you needed when you worked a midnight shift in radio. So
it got the job done, right?
Exactly. So yeah. All that aside, but like I said, I know you mentioned you've listened to some episodes, so you kind of know what we do. But what we do is we want to go back and find out how it started. You said you're a lifelong martial artist. I want to know what led to that, where that first interest came from, that first spark that kicked off your martial arts journey.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm excited to talk about it too. Martial arts has defined my entire life, and it's everything I've ever done. So Anytime I get to talk more about it, I'm happy to do it. It's funny because when I was real young, like 3 years old, my parents tried to sign me up for an action karate, and I refused to take my shoes off. So awesome. I was a little delayed. I didn't get started till a few years later when I was 5 years old. And the original reason I wanted to get started was I wanted to be a Power Ranger. Nice. A little 5-year-old wanted to take out Rita Repulsa. And so we joined. It was Tiger Strongman's karate at the time, but they were just starting to make their shift and transition into the MMA world. It's when the UFC kind of first showed up on the scene. So I started training when I was 5. I'm 29 now.
Okay.
I'm not that great at math. So I was at 21, 22 years ago, 23 years ago, however long ago that was, right around when MMA started to get a little more popular too. So they thought they were signing me up for karate. And, I had the gi. We did a little bit of wood breaking, but very, very quickly it transitioned into an MMA journey of kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and wrestling and boxing and all of it.
I got to ask, which was your favorite Power Ranger?
It's a split, honestly. Red Ranger, red's my favorite color.
Yep.
I like to be the leader of things. However, Tommy is also the man. Green Ranger's sick. He becomes a leader as a White Ranger. I mean, he's a whole lineage of red and then black. Like, he's the badass, and there's a little bit of the lone wolf in me as well. So I would have to say Tommy, probably.
That's awesome.
More than anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I loved Tommy too, and I was a little older than you, but I'm 51. But I actually, as a teenager or college kid, was watching Power Rangers, and I actually, right in front of me in my recording studio, I have a miniature red and a miniature Green Ranger sitting within arm's length of me. So it's
badass.
Kind of cool you mentioned both of them. So
yeah, very cool.
That's awesome. So at that very young age, you said you had a gi, you did some board breaking. Now, did you ever do kind of like karate competition or?
I never competed in karate.
Okay.
I started training, like I said, 5, and then I probably started competing at like 7.
Okay.
And the first competition that I did, it was a kickboxing competition. So
wow.
I had like MMA gloves, like little chops and shin pads and booties and headgear and a mouthpiece. And it was body only kickboxing.
Okay.
But I was still wearing my gi. So it's funny
Really?
to look at. Like there's pictures of me in like full kickboxing. It's full contact, like rock and sock and robots, body only, like I said, but we were wearing a gi. And so that was probably like my first 1 or 2 competitions. And then probably when I was like 8-ish is when we switched out of gis. And then we still had the gi pants,
okay,
but they took off the gi tops. And so when we were grappling, we were wearing rash guards. And then we were kickboxing, we were just wearing t-shirts, but we still had gi pants and a belt.
Wow.
So it was the transition, but the style was very much kickboxing and jiu-jitsu.
Okay. And so what were your parents' thoughts on this? You said they thought you were getting into karate, and then just see you doing this and competing like that. What were their thoughts? Do you remember?
I mean, I don't think they thought anything negative about it because I've stayed there my entire life. We have an amazing instructor at the school that I grew up in, and he's like my second father. He's still very close in my life today.
Nice.
And so the kids program was incredible, still is. He did an amazing job talking to the parents, building trust with the parents, nurturing the kids in a great way. The tournaments were very safe and organized. And so there was nothing that would make a parent feel like, oh, my kid is going to get hurt. Obviously, injuries, things happen because they're contact sports, but it's what I like doing. I love doing it. They were happy that I had something that I was enjoying, even though I was terrible at it. And so they kept bringing me and paying for it.
Okay. You mentioned doing kickboxing and stuff. Now, what other kind of competition before you turned 18? What did you do? Some grappling competitions? What other kind of stuff did you do?
Yeah. So every 2 months at the organization I grew up in, they have an in-house tournament called the Challenge of Champions. So it was June and December.
Okay.
And it was every Tiger Schulman school in the organization. So 40 something schools all around Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut would come to one location in New Jersey. And it would be a bracket style tournament. There'd be a kickboxing division and there would be a jiu-jitsu division.
Okay.
So I would compete in both. I would compete in kickboxing. I would compete in jiu-jitsu. I did that pretty consistently every year till probably I was around 12. So probably from the time of like 7 or 8 to 12, I competed there. And like I said, I was really, really not good. And so I don't think I ever won. I was competing, but I wasn't doing well. And that's when I eventually took some time off because at that point I had gotten to like their kids black belt division and I was just getting crushed. And so I took some time off and I didn't start competing again until I was 16. And then when I got back to competition, same thing, kickboxing. Actually, it was jiu-jitsu and then an MMA division. Still to the body, but it was putting the striking and grappling together. So grappling division, MMA division. Okay. And then I started winning some tournaments and getting first place and actually doing well. Took long enough. It took a decade, but
so did you have a preference out of when you first started, when you were doing kickboxing and grappling? Was there one you enjoyed more, even though you weren't necessarily doing well in either one? Is there one you preferred?
Yeah, I still have a preference. I still prefer striking.
Okay.
I'm still a better striker than grappler, but I'm getting better at grappling and continuing to put the work in because it's important. I enjoy it and I love it. It's just I naturally am better at striking.
Did you ever at any point in your career, in your journey, did you ever do any type of boxing competitions?
No boxing.
Okay.
No.
It's surprising as much as you like striking. I thought maybe that would have been a natural one for you to try it. So
yeah, I like kicking shit too, though. So
that helps. And you talked about your first instructor, how he was like, a father figure and stuff. What are some things that stand out about the way he taught that you really remember that obviously you stuck with it for that long? What are some of the things you remember, but like specifically during some of the classes and, how he interacted with the students and his teaching style?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the biggest lessons that I learned from him and that I carry into every area of my life and now and I teach to athletes that I coach and work with is what he called non-quitting spirit, but which is just a nice way of saying perseverance, resilience, never giving up. And that was one of the reasons I stayed so long, because what he taught was like, no matter how hard something gets, no matter how challenging it is, no matter how much you suck at it, as long as you keep trying and putting the effort in and you don't give up, eventually, as long as you do put the work in, you really genuinely care about it and you're passionate about it, you can get great at it. And so that was something that really stuck with me, because I had done other sports like baseball. I had tried other things. And even with baseball as a kid, there was a timeline, right? You had to be good at a certain point or you weren't going to make that team, or kids started bullying you because you were holding the team back. And so what I loved about the martial arts was the patience, and there wasn't really a timeline with it. As a kid, I could take as long as I wanted to, and there were really no ramifications for not performing other than how it impacted myself. And so that was pretty cool. And so just the patience and the understanding and the encouragement that came with that. And then also a lot of tough love, being hard on me, putting me in tough situations that I wanted to quit and stop, but being pushed to the point where I wanted to quit, but I didn't quit. And that's how we grow. That's how we become mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually stronger. And that carries over in everything that you do.
I like that. That's very cool. So at any point during that, did you ever get involved in the teaching side? Did you help like instruct class, work with new students?
Yeah. So I started helping out on the mat when I was 12 with the little kids classes.
Nice.
And that's when I decided I want to own a martial arts school. I want to be a sensei. This is what I want to do for my entire life. So I guess, from my entire time in that school, 12 years old, I was helping out with the kids classes. And then as I got older, helping out with the adult classes. Then as I got older, my older teaching all of the classes. And when I went to college, now 18, 19, 20, I transitioned into the manager position of the school. So I was doing the trial classes and handling renewals and upgrades and learning the business side of running a martial arts school. And that was what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to open a martial arts school, teach, run, do the business of that. And life took me in a different direction. While I was working in that school, I was also going to school for exercise science, and I discovered strength and conditioning and performance and recovery. And I was very much growing up on an old school mentality of like no days off, train harder, like eat clean, and it still plagues combat sports today. And I discovered just the beauty of sports science, where you still have to have resilience and you still have to work hard and you still have to push yourself. However, there comes to a point where pushing yourself too much leads to burnout, leads to breaking down, leads to injury and loss of joy in what you're doing. And I was really starting to experience some of those things when I was, in my later days of college and early into my days after graduation. And so that led me down to becoming obsessed with the sports performance and recovery side of the martial arts. And right out of school, I had met one of my other mentors, the doctor of physical therapy, Frank Benedetto, and he helped me learn how to coach fighters through these different processes that I was experimenting on myself and creating. And around 2021, I decided that, okay, I'm not going to own a martial arts school. I'm going to do my own thing. And I exited working at the school I grew up in after 20 years of being there, and founded the Fight Science Collective, which is what I do now.
Nice. I know. And on the website, you did mention you basically went through burnout yourself. After doing that, you said you were training 6 to 7 days a week and following the traditional martial arts wisdom and everything. And was there a point because of that? And I've talked to a handful of people that have gone through the burnout thing. Did you ever just think of, I'm done with martial arts, I can't handle this anymore because of the burnout? Did that ever cross your mind?
No, that never crossed my mind.
That's good. Well, that's good though. I mean, because I've had others that I personally went through that. I almost quit martial arts completely, and my whole thing was I was just with the wrong instructor. I was with an instructor that was just not a good person, and that's what drove my burnout. So
that's tough.
Yeah, I know.
That's tough for sure.
I tell everyone, most people who are of the generation of the 80s, 90s get it, but he was my John Kreese. So it was just not a nice person, and literally made me hate martial arts. And
that sucks, dude.
Yeah. Luckily, someone introduced me to my current instructor, who I've been with now for 30 years. So it's a big difference. But yeah. So when you decided to do this, to make this switch, to found the Fight Collective, kind of what were the first few steps? What was your initial goal when you had the idea, and is that what it became, or did something change along the way?
No, that's a great question. So originally I had mentioned Dr. Frank Benedetto, doctor of physical therapy, who's my mentor. So right out of college, I graduated from Temple University with my bachelor's in exercise science in 2019. Okay. And originally my intention was to be the strength and conditioning coach for the Tiger Schulman's fight team. That's the organization that I grew up in. Okay. And Frank was working with the team at the time. He had just started working with them. And I remember like right before graduation, like stalking him on Instagram, being like, fuck this guy. Like I could do this better than him. Like, what? He's stealing my team. And so I had asked one of my strength and conditioning mentors in college at the time. I was like, what do you think I should do? And he's like, just go up to him and introduce yourself and see how you can help. And so that's what I did. He was at our headquarters one day after training, and I went up and I introduced myself and I told him who I am and my background, and I love what he was doing, and if there's anything that I could do to help, I'm definitely around. So I started just interning with him as an unpaid intern. And it was originally called Counter-Strike Combat Sports at the time. This was his business, working with combat athletes through performance recovery, strength and conditioning, nutrition, mindset, all of that. And then, it was more of a hybrid model. He was doing some in person, but a lot of online. And so I was helping him with that. And then COVID happened in 2020, and the lockdowns happened, and a lot of gyms were forced to close their doors and shut down, most of them. And so we went all in on the online model, and I went from an intern to actually getting paid some money to program for these athletes, to getting to the point where, it was really becoming my show. And we made a transition where I ended up taking ownership of the entity of the company. And he still, supports as a strategy and a mentor side of things. But in 2021, I took over, full time in the Fight Science Collective. And, it really sparked out of this passion for having, it's almost like, in the Matrix, when Neo first becomes realizes that he's the one, but actually realizes it, where he starts seeing the Matrix towards the end of the movie, right? And so I kind of feel like I have this view of the fight game where I can just see what creates longevity and can create just an insane amount of performance and recovery for fighters. And so many fighters are just stuck in this cycle that is leading to burnout and injury and breakdown. And this sport is hard enough to succeed in, not just from a superficial financial level, or even from a winning belts level or making it to the UFC level, but just on an emotional level and how it impacts your life off of the mats. And so I could just see these patterns over and over and over and over again. And for me, if the Fight Science Collective can help more fighters avoid catastrophic burnout, and look, not everyone's going to become a world champion, but if we can help them find more success and actually build careers or actually preserve their bodies through this sport, then in my belief, the sport's going to be a better place, because we're going to have higher level athletes. We're going to have happier athletes. We're going to have better levels of competition. But really, for me, I think everyone should learn a martial art. It makes the world just a better place when you know how to protect yourself, when you feel confident. And so if we have more people that are feeling good about themselves, that are healthy, that are joy filled, that are doing what they love with their life and not feeling like they're stuck in a job that they hate, then that energy can spread, and it can make the world a better place as well.
Definitely.
So that's the small impact that I'm looking to have with the skill set that I was given.
Now, you yourself, obviously you had this aha moment in your life, and you realized stuff you were doing wasn't working right, and you decided to make that change. How do you approach someone who, let's say a 30-year martial artist who's even more set in their ways than you were? How do you approach that and try to convince them, hey, this might work better for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it is them needing to realize it themselves.
Okay.
Because a lot of guys aren't even aware that they have a problem. And so the first step is helping them become aware of those problems. Like, oh, yeah, I might be doing this wrong, but then eventually get to the point where cool, I understand that I have a problem, but I don't really know what to do to fix this problem. And that's when we can start presenting solutions to them. And then once they understand the solution, then they can find the Fight Science Collective as the delivery source of that solution. right? So it's moving guys just through these different levels of awareness, through building trust with them, through really connecting and showing genuine curiosity and interest in what they're doing, because no one's going to receive, you have to do it like this, or you're doing it wrong, or like this is what, if they're not ready to receive it. So it's definitely a hard challenge, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of the people that we end up working with come working with us after they have one of these rock bottom moments, like a catastrophic injury, like losing a fight they should have won, like having to pull out of a fight because of a bad weight cut or something else that happened. And then they're like, oh, okay, now I need to do something. And we call this a reactive response. But there are a small percentage of fighters that we work with, and there are more of them, which is awesome, that are being proactive, where they can recognize that, okay, well, I'm finding some success now, but if I continue to do what I'm doing, it will not continue to lead to the result that I'm seeing, and it could lead to something more catastrophic down the line. And so just trying to help guys have more of that proactive mindset to invest in themselves and their bodies and their careers earlier so they can avoid those catastrophic incidents.
And is it primarily online, or do you also do in-person stuff too?
Right now, everything that we do is online.
Okay. So if someone goes to the website, what can they expect? What should they be looking for? What type of stuff do you offer through the website?
Yeah, our website's fine. It's kind of just a hub because people are going to search things. The best place to really interact and engage and learn about what we do and get some help is through our Instagram. Okay. So Fight Science Collective on Instagram is the best place to connect with us. That's where I'm the most active in putting the most free content out there. Just tips, tricks, strategies for strength and conditioning, nutrition, recovery, mindset. I also have a podcast, the Fight Science Made Simple podcast.
Nice.
That's available on all major platforms. And on that podcast, I go a little bit deeper into the sports science topics that we talk about. But my whole goal with that podcast is to take these complex topics and turn them, like it says, simple, easy to understand, and then actionable steps that fighters, martial artists, combat athletes can start using that day to see immediate improvements on their performance and recovery.
Nice.
We have a lot of other resources. We have a few free resources that we'll put out either through the podcast or through Instagram. I'm actually releasing a book on Thursday called The Strength and Conditioning Code, and that maps out our philosophy and our strength and conditioning framework to help fighters build relentless cardio, devastating finishing power, and really just bulletproof themselves against injuries. So that's going to be live and available on our website come Thursday. And then obviously, if someone wants to work with us and get coached one-on-one, we have a few different coaching options, and you can book a free diagnostic call on our website where we'll talk about your training, your challenges, your performance, your recovery, and come up with a roadmap to help you get where you're looking to go in this game.
And are you primarily focusing on fighters, or is this something that just anyone who likes training hard in martial arts would benefit from?
Yeah, we work with everyone from guys in the UFC to pros that are looking to make it to the next level, amateurs looking to go pro, and hobbyists that want to train like fighters and want to be in this game and be on the mats for the rest of their life.
And I'm glad you mentioned the book, because that was actually my next question, was if you ever thought of writing one. So that's actually perfect timing. I'm glad. And
yeah.
So by the time this episode comes out, the book should be available.
It should be available.
That'll be good.
Yes.
And then the podcast, what kind of led to that, and how are you enjoying the world of podcasting?
It's cool. We just released episode 6 yesterday,
nice.
Which is pretty sweet. So it is very new, but I am liking it. No guests yet, but it's definitely on my docket. I think that's the word. It's on my plan to bring guests on. They're shorter episodes, 20 to 30 minutes, but when we have guests on, they're going to be longer form.
Yeah.
And the reason for the podcast is because, we live in a world where we've never had the more opportunities to be connected.
Yeah.
But we've never felt more disconnected. And I'm someone, I've been connecting with fighters and martial artists through the internet since 2019. Mm-hmm. And with the introduction of AI and just how popular short form content has become, it's just more and more challenging to really connect with people and build trust with people through these short form platforms. People have a lot less trust. They don't know who to trust. They don't know what's real anymore. And you can't really have meaningful conversations or get to know someone through a 3-second reel on Instagram. Yep. And so my intention with the podcast is to provide more value and go into more detail than I can through my Instagram, because no one's going to sit and watch a 3-minute video on Instagram anymore. It's at 3-second goldfish brains, right? And that's just what we have, and that's okay. And then my second intention is to hopefully build more trust with fighters in this space. People can learn more about me, learn more about our process, learn more about what I do and who I am. And if they do vibe with that energy and feel alignment in our mission and the services that we provide, then maybe they would want to explore what coaching with us could look like. So that's the intent of the podcast.
Well, definitely good luck with that. I mean, and you're perfect, because it's the numbers are out there that the average podcast does not make it past 7 episodes. So go for it. Keep going. I mean, you said you just dropped 6. Hopefully by the time this episode releases, you'll be on like 8, 9, or 10, and you'll be in the majority instead of the minority.
Wow, so, only 7, really?
Yeah, that's the average. I mean, right now there's something I just looked at the stats a few weeks ago. There's been over 5 million podcasts released. Out of those, only around 500,000 to 600,000 are actually active.
Wow.
Yeah. I've done 3 podcasts in my career. 2 are still going, both over 250 episodes, and the other one went to like 60. So
wow.
But yeah, I know many people. I know people who give up after 3 episodes. I know a handful that did not make that 7, and I know others that are in that 50 to 100 range and still going. And I got a friend who does a daily podcast, nothing to do with martial arts or anything like that, but he's on daily, so he's on like episode like 700 or something. So,
that's commitment.
Yeah, it's crazy, but that's awesome. I mean, seriously, I wish you nothing but the best with that. Anything I can do to help with the podcast and promote it, and like I said, I'll put a link for it for that and the book and everything else when it comes out. So that's awesome.
I appreciate that.
Now, one thing you mentioned about drastic weight cuts and stuff as a possible reason for someone to contact you or something like that. I'd love to get your opinion in that, because I've talked to a handful of people involved with MMA and the fighting and stuff, and kind of I'll give you a brief overview of my opinion, and I'd just love to hear your opinion on it. But so my opinion is, I personally think people should fight closer to their walking around weight. I'm not a huge fan of weight cuts. I've talked to so many people who are like, they're walk around at 180, they fight at 155, they weigh in at 155 on Friday, and by fight time on Saturday, they're up to like 175 anyway. So then why not fight at 175? That's kind of the way I see it. Curious your opinion on that.
Yeah, it's a tough topic. And ultimately, weight cuts and weight classes are put in place to protect the athletes.
Right.
Because if, let's say, you fight at 155 and you walk around at 160, well, somebody is going to cut down from a larger weight class. And so, you might walk into the cage at 160 and then you are fighting somebody at 180. And that's a big difference, right? That's a big difference in MMA. So unfortunately, weight cuts are a part of the sport. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but they are there to keep athletes safe. What's great, though, is that UFCPI and some other great professionals in the sport, like the Jordy Sullivan fight dietitian, are doing some really, really great work with top athletes in the game. And as like anything, as we have more data and more time and more research, we learn more about how to safely cut weight, how to safely rehydrate and refuel. And what we're finding now is that this sport is such a skill-dominated sport that these giant weight cuts of 20, 25 pounds are starting to reduce, which is really great. Okay. And so, we're going to see less of the guys cutting from 180 down to 155, and maybe they're going to cut from 176, 177 down to 155, which is really, really great. So general rule of thumb is that typically, and this is what I advise our guys, is we never want them to be walking around at more than 16% away from their fight weight. And then typically by fight week, we want them just around 8% away from their fight weight.
Okay.
And that puts us at a really healthy spot. And what's cool is research from the UFC Performance Institute is showing us that on average, winners in the UFC are cutting from in fight week are cutting from 8% away from their fight weight or lower, which means guys that are going into fight week and have more than 8% to lose in that week typically are at a disadvantage because they're putting too much stress on their body.
Okay.
Going through that process.
Interesting.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. So what about, I know there's been talk in the past about changing to same day weigh-ins to kind of get away from the weight cutting. What would your thoughts be in places that would try that?
I think same day weigh-ins creates more complications because you're still going to have guys that are going to cut weight. It doesn't matter. Like guys are going to cut weight, even if it's a same day weigh-in. And like I said prior, the weight cuts are put in place to protect the athlete. So if we're putting a same day weigh-in, we're just going to have more guys that are cutting weight. It's not like, oh, cool, same day weigh-in, let's not cut weight. No. Okay, same day weigh-in. Let's figure out how to cut weight and then refuel in a 4-hour window to fight. So in my opinion, that's more dangerous because guys are going to do it. They're going to cut for that same day. And then also there's the scrapping fight. It's a headache for promoters because on the fly, they have to scrap fights.
Yeah.
The guys don't make weight. And it's just, I don't see that much benefit from doing a same day weigh-in.
Okay. Last question on this, because you're probably the most knowledge person on this aspect that I probably talked to in a while. But so let's say my weight, walking around weight is 175. Why don't I fight at 170 instead of trying to get to 155? Wouldn't that make more sense?
Well, it depends your sport, but again, like if you're fighting you walk around at 175 and you're going to cut 5 pounds to fight at welterweight. Like I work with welterweights. They walk around at 197.
Wow.
Okay. And so, which is a safe and effective range to be cutting down to 170. Like that's fine. 197 is the max that I would have someone walk around with out of camp. But if you walk around at 175 and you decide to cut 5 pounds to cut at welterweight, you're going to be massively undersized against somebody on fight night.
That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. But if everyone did that way, so like the guys who are walking around at 197, why aren't they fighting at like 195? That's the part I'm trying to wrap my head around. It's why don't everyone just fight closer to their walking around weight instead of doing weight cuts at all?
Because there's always going to be someone that's going to cut, right? Like unless you you have to be at fight weight before you walk in the cage. So if you're fighting at welterweight, you have to be 170 stepping on the scale to go into the cage. But that is a logistical nightmare, So you can say, okay, like no one's going to agree to, okay, we're all just going to fight at our weight. No, this is sports. Guys are going to want the advantage.
Yeah.
And especially at the highest level of the sport, there's a reason why UFC belts turn over so quickly because guys are so similar in skill level. And when you have competitors that are that close in technical and tactical abilities, then the X factor is going to be everything else. Their strength and conditioning, their weight cutting, their nutrition, their recovery work, their mindset work. And so the guys that can get an advantage that way are going to do it. So it's a nice world to think that, we're all just going to fight at our walk around weight. But then there's going to be that one guy that cuts down and smashes everybody. And so just to keep it fair, playing grounds, we got a weight cut. Now, I agree, I don't think we should be cutting from 190 down to 155.
Right.
I think that's an outrageous weight cut. So these giant weight cuts, the original school of thought was we cut as much weight as we possibly can. We push our threshold on this. We cut as much weight as possible in order to put on as much weight in 24 hours or more to then have the size advantage. But what we're finding is that produces more of a disadvantage because the sport is so skill dependent.
Yeah.
And so instead of cutting from 190, maybe we cut from 180. And so that cut is not easy, but it's more manageable and it doesn't have a detrimental effect on health and it doesn't put too large an amount of stress on the body and nervous system that then would wreck you on fight night.
Okay. So basically the way I'm thinking, unless an organization says we're going to put a scale outside of the door to the cage and you have to weigh in before you walk in, it's never going to happen the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Makes sense. Now, a big part of your stuff is, the proper way to train, proper recovery, and hopefully avoiding injuries and whatnot. So on that level, how about you personally? What's the worst martial arts related injury you've had?
I tore my ACL in May.
Oh, Just this year?
This year. Yeah.
Dang. Okay. And was it training or was it like during a fight?
Yeah, I was sparring. Yeah. I was sparring.
Okay.
A little bit high of an outside trip, my partner, and
Damn.
was planning an ACL snap. Yeah.
And how long that put you out of commission?
So this is actually a pretty cool testament to the power of our Fight Science operating system, our process for strength and conditioning, nutrition, recovery, and mindset, because so it tore at the end of May. So it's been just over 5 months that my ACL tore. It was a complete tear. So my ACL is gone. I don't have an ACL anymore. No buckling, no surgery. I haven't shot a peptide in my knee. I don't use braces or anything like that. And I just got back to full grappling this week. I've been kickboxing sparring fully for the last 3 weeks, looking to reintroduce MMA sparring next week, and then hopefully take a fight December of January, which is pretty cool. I wasn't out for that long. I was pretty much in the weight room immediately. And actually, it's funny, like I was still sparring with it for a couple of weeks after it tore, because I originally had a fight booked in June, and as far as I was concerned, I was fighting. And I thought it was maybe like a meniscus or something like that, because I had no buckling. There was no reason for me to think like, oh, cool, like I tore my ACL, let alone completely tearing my ACL. And so I was still training with it. And then my opponent pulled out, and I was like, all right, well, let's get an MRI and see what's up. And I was shocked that it was an ACL tear. But the reason, I tell our athletes this all the time, is that injuries are not 100% preventable in combat sports. They're going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. It's a full contact sport. Your body's consistently getting put under large amounts of trauma and stress while you're also simultaneously reducing calories. So it's a crazy science to figure out. But the beautiful thing about data-driven strength and conditioning, nutrition, recovery, mindset is that it makes your body more resilient and more durable. So you get injured less. And when those injuries do happen, they're not as catastrophic, and B, you can bounce back quicker, right? Because of the Fight Science operating system and personally practicing what I preach for so long, freak accident happened and it didn't put me out of commission for that long. I bounced back faster than honestly I would have if I didn't. And I was able to avoid a major surgery because of it.
That's cool. See, and all this time I just thought it was stubbornness, because I blew out my ACL completely and my meniscus when I was 16, actually the day before my 16th birthday. And back then, this would have been 1990, they would not do the surgery until you stop growing. So basically they're like, you're not going to do anything physical, no more basketball, no more skateboarding, no more martial arts, none of this stuff until we do the surgery in a few years. And I just went and started going, basically rehabbing and working out and using however normal stuff I was doing. And I never had the surgery. that was 1990. So 35 years ago. Been doing martial arts pretty much ever. I'm taking breaks, obviously, because of life. But I mean, it's every now and then I'll have an issue with it. It'll go out a little bit, but I've never had to have that knee rebuilt. So,
good. That's awesome. Power of movement.
I could have founded Fight Science 30 years ago. What the heck? No, but that's awesome. I mean, that's cool. And that's, I love what you're doing. And we might have to chat more about that. Who knows? Maybe there's even more hope for my knee after that.
Yeah. Let me know, man. We'll rebuild that thing stronger than ever.
That is cool. That's awesome. So what about, now you said, how many fights have you had now?
So as a kickboxer, I've had 3 kickboxing fights and I've had 4 MMA fights.
Okay. And you prefer MMA? You prefer kickboxing? Or are they both pretty equally enjoyable?
Oh no, MMA's the best. There's no drug in the world that feels the way winning an MMA fight dominantly feels. Okay.
And are you do mostly local regional stuff? Do you travel for your fights or?
Yeah, so I'm an amateur still. Okay. So we're just on the local regional scene. In Florida, you have to have 5 amateur fights before you can apply for your pro license.
Okay.
And I actually took a break from fighting. So I'm 29. I'm a little bit behind because I did my kickboxing pre-COVID and COVID happened and I just went all in on business. And I was still in Philadelphia at the time. And around 2022 is when I moved to Florida. And I really had no desire to fight again because I was so focused on building a business and building my coaching systems and helping people and spreading my mission. And then in 2023, I was still training. Like I found gyms here. I was still training. But in 2023, I went through a breakup and I just threw myself even more into training and like decide. At first, like I'm pretty good. And so it's funny because in the gym, guys are, so Billy Quarantillo, he's our coach. He's a UFC fighter.
Mhm.
Guys are always like, Billy, I want to fight. Billy, I want to fight. Billy, I want to fight. When can I fight? And he's always like, we'll see. We'll see. Like, you got to train. You got to show up. Oh, you got to work on this. And I was the opposite. Everyone was like, dude, when are you going to fight? When are you going to fight? And I was like, I don't want to fight. So my transition went from I don't want to fight to maybe I'll fight to, okay, I want to fight, but I just maybe do a couple to, all right, well, might as well go pro to, all right, let's make a run for the UFC. So it kind of
Nice.
just in the span of a year turned into that. And so really in 2023, that year was when I decided, okay, I want to fight. We weren't able to get me one. A couple fights fell through.
Okay.
So 2024, I did 3 fights in 2024.
Wow.
I did 1 fight this year. My plan was to finish out my amateur career, do 2 or 3 amateur fights this year, and then make my pro debut. But the ACL obviously put a stopper in that. So right now, looking to fight December, January, maybe get another amateur fight February, and then hopefully look to make a pro debut at some point next year.
Awesome.
And then from there, I mean, we can go on a pretty quick streak of you get 4, 5, 6 pretty dominant finishes in a pro career, and then you have a UFC Dana White Contender Series shot right there.
That's awesome.
That's the plan. That's the goal.
So what is your MMA walk-up music? Do you use the same one every fight? Is it also, did you have a different one for kickboxing, and kind of what song's your pump-up song there?
Yeah. So in my kickboxing career, I would walk out to the Imperial March, Darth Vader's theme. It's pretty sick.
I love it.
And then when I decided to fight MMA, I had a bit of a rebrand. So right now, I don't have a specific walkout song.
Okay.
I typically walk out to like trap EDM. So like usually like Skrillex or something like that. More modern Skrillex versus like bro steppy Skrillex from the 2010s. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe I'm digging right now.
Are you starting to think about, for your pro debut, do you want to go back to the Star Wars theme or do something else maybe?
I've thought about it. We'll see. I'm I used to be like a kind of person that would like envision and like plan all those things in a lot of meticulous detail. And I'm not really like that anymore. I'm very much going with the flow of things and being grounded in the present moment. And it's stressful when you try to plan every little detail of your life.
Definitely.
So whatever I'm feeling, whatever is going to come is going to come. Right now, I'm just happy to be able to train and take it one day at a time and do what I love.
Nothing to do with martial arts, but as a fellow Star Wars fan, at 29, you probably missed out on this. So you probably never got to really stand in line at a movie theater when they came out. Because they had, by the time episode 3 came out, everything was pre-order, so there was no more standing in line for tickets.
Yeah, I saw Attack of the Clones in theaters. I saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters. I don't really remember what the line process was like, but I do know when Force Awakens comes out, there wasn't a line to buy tickets, but there was a line to get in.
Yeah.
I remember like there was a pretty big line for Force Awakens.
So Phantom Menace, I was in line for about 48 hours waiting for tickets. People camped out. There was people with like generators showing, the original trilogy on VHS tape and everything in the back of their vehicles. And and the funny part was I was actually in line on my wife's due date. Yeah, that was a conversation. But,
wow, you have more important priorities, Brian.
I know. Well, the thing was, I knew that my future child was going to be a Star Wars fan, and I knew they would wait. And the best part was, I want to say it was around May like 19th or 20th was the due date. So stood in line, got to see the movie, and my son waited to be born until May 25th, which was the date Star Wars opened in 1977. So it was meant to be. And then I think Revenge of the Sith was also like 30, 35 or 40 hours also standing in line. So yeah, good times.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't remember it. I was very young, and I've had a lot of brain trauma over the years. So.
I saw the original Star Wars in 1977 at a drive-in theater with my dad when I was 3 years old, and I remember it vividly.
That's amazing.
I always had a big impact.
My mom's was she's the one that got me into Star Wars because she saw the originals.
Nice.
It was like life-changing for him. So I don't have many like FOMO experiences, but that is definitely like one moment that I think I would have enjoyed, is that like phenomena in history that was Star Wars, but I'm a little biased with it. So
it was pretty cool, man. I'm glad I lived through it. So
yeah. Yeah.
All right. I got a few fun questions we use to wrap up the interview.
Okay.
Who are 3, 4, 5 names you'd put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's a great question. Definitely. Okay. We're going to throw Hoist Gracie up there.
Nice.
For bringing jiu-jitsu over.
Yeah.
You have to, I guess you got to put Bruce Lee up there as well as an OG. I'm going to be honest with you though. Your listeners probably are going to hate me for this, because I don't really watch traditional martial arts movies or like follow that many traditional martial artists. Okay. So a lot of I'm an MMA guy through and through.
Hey, that's why.
So a lot of my guys are going to be like UFC or MMA fighters. So Mount Rushmore. Okay. You got to throw George St. Pierre up there.
Definitely.
Okay. One of the greatest of all times. Now we're getting hard. All right. This can be a deep cut. We can throw Miyamoto Musashi up there.
I like it.
Are the 5 rings. So, okay. Then we have a 5th one. There's so many. This is a tough question, bro.
We got 4 solid ones. We can stop there if you can't think of
They are pretty
one.
solid. They are pretty solid. Okay. I think I can think of it. I'm going to have to I'll put Demetrius Johnson as my 5th one, Mighty Mouse, just because he was dominant as a UFC champion, then went over and was dominant as a 1 FC champion, and now he's retired from MMA and he's dominating in gi jiu-jitsu. And so, he isn't young for the sport.
Yeah.
So it's impressive.
I like it.
That kind of longevity.
Hey, that's a stacked Mount Rushmore. I like it.
It is a good one.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts book?
Favorite martial arts book. Okay. Let me think about it. I guess Book of the 5 Rings, right? Since I said Musashi.
Yep.
So,
okay, that's a good one. All right. How about a favorite martial arts video game? Do you ever get into gaming?
Yeah, video games I play. I don't think I really played like martial arts video games, though. I guess the only fighting game that I played is like Super Smash Bros.
Okay.
But if we're talking martial arts video game, I guess that would be it.
Okay, that works. All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
I guess the Power Rangers.
Nice. I was thinking you might pick that. Now, as an MMA fan, were you a fan of the show Kingdom? Did you watch that when it was out?
I did not. No.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts movie?
Favorite martial arts movie. You're really stretching my memory on these. Again, I don't know if I have a favorite. Like, the only one that is coming to my mind right now is The Karate Kid.
Hey, that's mine. So that one you can never go wrong with.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah. Did you enjoy any of the MMA movies? I know there's been a few like Warrior or things like that.
No, I don't. I haven't watched any of them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. Any movie you've seen in your whole life, just a favorite movie fight scene. Is there just one fight scene that jumps out? And like I said, people have picked Star Wars, Marvel, anything.
I mean, the John Wick choreography is pretty crazy. So I would say the fight scenes, that pencil scene is pretty crazy. Yeah. Keanu Reeves crushes it.
I did have one person, I think about a year ago, pick the Darth Maul fight scene when he gets cut in half.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yes. Yep. I just rewatched that about 2 months ago. So
it's a classic. Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, if we're talking lightsaber battles, I think Anakin and Obi-Wan's in Revenge of the Sith, like that choreography is crazy, and like Hayden and Ewan just put so much love into that.
Yeah, that was epic. That was very epic. I enjoyed that a lot. Well, before I let you go, is there anything we forgot to cover we want to throw out there, a last minute parting, anything you want to get out there before we wrap it up?
No, I think we're all good. I appreciate you having me on and taking the time to chat. If your listeners want to learn a little bit more or are interested about what we do at the Fight Science Collective, definitely check me out at Fight Science Collective on Instagram. You can check out our podcast, the Fight Science Made Simple podcast, on all major podcasting platforms. And my book, The Strength and Conditioning Code, How to Upgrade and Bulletproof Your Body for Battle, is coming out this Thursday. I believe that's November 7th. This podcast will already be out by then, but Brian, I can send you the links and everything, and we can include it
definitely
down in the show notes.
And for the podcast, I forgot to ask, is there set times when you release new episodes?
Every Monday.
Okay, cool. So hopefully you'll be up to 10 or 11 by the time this comes out. You mentioned as of now, no guest. Is there any future guests you're maybe hoping to get, or a dream guest you'd love to interview on there?
I don't really have any dream guests. Okay. No, I'm going to give you the boring answer. I do have a pretty good network of fighters and sports specialists and nutritionists that I would love to bring on to the podcast. It's just a matter of pulling the trigger and scheduling it and getting that all situated and figuring out how I want to best do those interviews.
Okay. And is it audio and video? Is it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's audio and video. So all the videos are on YouTube and on the actual web, on the podcast website, we use Transistor.
Okay.
So on the Transistor site, the YouTube link will be there also.
Awesome.
If you want to stare at me talking to a camera for 30 minutes.
There you go. Awesome. Well, Adam, seriously, this has been so much fun. I'm glad we did this. I love your story. I love what you're doing. And I'm definitely going to, promote the heck out of it and hopefully send more people your way. And said, might have to, if I get ready to take my next martial arts test, might have to chat with you about my training to make sure my knee survives. So, but I think the listeners are really going to enjoy this interview.
Awesome, man. Hey, I hope that there was something that someone can benefit from. And if you do want some help with your knee, let me know. I would be happy to do it.
Wrap up today's episode by taking your own training to the next level with Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, the book that's redefining martial arts thinking. Find Martial Theory on Amazon today. Join the worldwide movement at martialtheoryu.com, where you'll find Q&A sessions, live events, and direct guidance from Steve himself. Use code EverydayMA for 20% off for life. That's martialtheoryu.com, code EverydayMA. Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.